the text. When she started to nod, Aunt Frances had smiled and walked away, dusting off her hands at a job well done. Now I grinned, not taking my attention off the road. If you don't like winter, maybe you should consider moving to Hawaii. Winter I like just fine, she said. It's April that's the trouble. No matter what temperature it is, you always want a little bit more. She sighed, then looked at the large plastic carrier snugged up next to her feet. What does Eddie think about April? I don't know, I said. Why don't you ask him? Julia leaned forward, looking into the cat carrier through the wire door. Good morning, young sir. How do you feel about the current weather conditions of cold, slushy, and wind-tossed? Mrrr, said my black and white tabby cat. Eddie and I had been together for almost a year. It had been an unseasonably warm day last April that lured me from inside chores to a long walk outside that ended at the local cemetery. Which sounds odd, but this particular cemetery had an outstanding view of Janay Lake and beyond to the bulk of the massive Lake Michigan. While relaxing in the sun on a bench next to the gravestone of one Alonzo Tillotson, born 1847, died 1926, I was startled by the appearance of a large black and gray cat. He'd followed me home, where I'd cleaned him up as best I could, turning him black and white. I had responsibly run an ad in the newspaper and had been relieved when no one claimed him. Because of my father's allergies, I'd grown up without pets. Eddie, who my vet estimated was now roughly 3 years old, was my first pet, and I wasn't sure how I'd ever lived without my opinionated pal. There'd been a little issue when my new boyfriend turned out to be allergic to cats, but after trying a series of various medications, he'd found one that worked just fine. Then again, since we were now in the midst of a long-distance relationship, he had probably let the prescription lapse. I made a mental note to send a text to remind him. Eddie, Julia told my furry friend, you must learn how to enunciate more clearly. Theatergoers in the top rows will never grasp your nuances unless you work on the consonants. Mrrr. Julia sighed and settled back. He does not take advice well, does he? The interviewing process for the bookmobile job had included a tour of the bookmobile and an introduction to Eddie, because Eddie had been part of the bookmobile from the beginning. He'd stowed away on the maiden voyage and quickly became an integral part of the services we offered: books, magazines, DVDs, video games, and Eddie hair, not necessarily in that order. For months, I'd felt the need to hide the feline presence on the bookmobile from my follow-the-policy-or-else boss, Stephen Wrangle, but it turned out that Stephen had known about Eddie's adventures from the beginning. I really should have known better. And I really should have known to stop interviewing after I'd talked to Julia. She was the best candidate for many reasons, and had the bonus of being 8 inches taller than 5'0" me, making the job of reshelving the top rows of books easy to delegate. But the buttercream frosting was how she'd immediately started talking to Eddie in the same way I did, which was as if he understood what we were saying. We agreed that this was ridiculous, of course, but there were times when his comprehension of human speech seemed to go far beyond his name and the word no. Not that he paid any attention to either, but the twitching of his ears proved that he heard us. Cats aren't big on taking advice, I said. They'd much rather give it. I flicked on the turn signal and started braking. It was time for our first stop of the morning in the parking lot of what had originally been a gas station and was now well, I wasn't sure exactly what it was. A store, sure, but a store that defied description. The owner stocked everything from apples to taxidermy supplies. On the surface, it fit the definition of an old-fashioned general store, but there was also a corner with tables, copies of the Wall Street Journal, and free Wi-Fi. General stores don't stock the Wall Street Journal, I muttered.